Hello, everyone. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar series dedicated to exploring the imagination, representation, as well as the lived realities of women in the Middle East and North Africa, both historically and also in the contemporary period or context. We have developed this webinar series to bring together scholars and researchers from across the MENA region, the Gulf, Europe, and beyond. We are all united by a shared commitment to examining the diverse experiences, contributions, and representations of women through different disciplines such as art, literature, history, archaeology, medicine, and the sciences. At a time when the MENA region occupies a central place in global politics, economy, as well as social debates, women often remain the least visible participants. Despite being among those most affected by crises and transformation. Yet they are also at the forefront of profound social change taking place across the region in history as well as today. This series originally launched at the University of Manchester in December 2021, and it has grown thankfully into a vibrant platform for dialogue and intellectual exchange among academics, students, as well as the wider public audiences interested in questions of women, gender, society in the context of the MENA region. We are especially delighted that this initiative now continues through the partnership between the University of Manchester and the University of Sharjah. This joint venture reflects a shared commitment to the empowering of Muslim women through research and collaboration. So I would like to thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to the what promises to be a very stimulating discussion today. So I will let my colleague Hatun introduce our amazing speaker, and Yafa, after that, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ikram Benani. Uh, that I would, this, I'm Hatun Akasi. I'm joining you from Riyadh, and I'm presenting Professor Yafa Shanneik. She's a professor of Islam and Society at SOAS, University of London. Her research focuses on the intersection of Islam, gender, and migration in two regional contexts, Europe and the Middle East. Her work examines transnational Muslim female resistance movements, exploring how women navigate and challenge power structures within their communities and broader social political contexts. She has conducted extensive ethnographic fieldwork in Britain, Germany, Ireland, Jordan, Iran, and the Arab Gulf states. Between 2018 and 2023, she led the British Academy funded project investigating the migration of Syrians and Iraqis with a focus on how conflict-induced displacement reshapes gendered power dynamics.
شكرا. أنا لما شفت الصور اللي بعتيهم أنت ما عملتي سابني.
Hatun, unmute yourself, please.
Oh, I tried to mute the person who was.
It's okay.
Okay. So Shanique uses in I was describing what Yafa's research was of Syria and Iraqis, where she focused on how conflict-induced displacement shape gendered power dynamics. She uses innovative methodologies, including body mapping and immersive technologies like augmented and virtual reality. I can explain what these are also. Her research has been published in numerous journals, including Journal of Ethics, Migration Studies, Religion, Material Religion, etc. Many big names, and she has the monograph of the art of resistance in Islam, the performance of politics among Shia women in the Middle East and beyond, by Cambridge University. Um, Something very important about Yafa is that she works on in art as well. She incorporates art in her work. This is what we are going also to explore in her maybe after her lecture. She's going to speak about regulating kinship, religion, genetics, and reproductive governance across Europe and the Middle East. Professor Yafa, the floor is yours. Please share your presentation.
Thank you so much, Hatoun. Thank you very much, Ikram, as well. And thanks for the others also for joining this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here once again. So thank you so much for the invitation today on a different topic, which is on reproductive practices. So let me, can you see my presentation?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
No, not yet.
Second.
Okay. Yes. Just make it full screen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
You have 40 minutes.
All right, good. So today I would like to introduce my new project. The project is on reproductive practices among close-knit ethno-religious communities across the globe. And this project just started a few months ago, back in December, and is now housed at SOAS, School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London in UK. It's a new project, which means that it's really fresh out of the oven. I am planning, like I'm literally in the midst of putting my team together. I'm recruiting at the moment. So I would also like to put in, to highlight today that if you are interested in the topic, please do contact me afterwards. And I'm really happy to talk to you more in more detail about your interests and how anyone who's interested might be involved in some sort or another in this project. The project is for 5 years, and it is funded by the ERC, the European Research Council. It's a big project, €2 million. So this means that I will be able to employ a good number of researchers, and I will be working with a diverse team as well. So and do please visit my the project website for more details as well. So today I would like to talk to you a little bit about the scope of the project, what will be analyzed in the next 5 years, from which angles, from which disciplines, why is it important, and what I'm trying to do overall with such a project. The whole project focuses on the idea or the question of kinship, particularly particularly focusing on the questions on how do we decide on our marriage partners, and how do we protect our lineage, and what happens when state power, religious beliefs, and medical science come into conflict. As we all know, these are, questions that shape the everyday lives of close-knit ethno-religious communities across the globe. Why close-knit ethno-religious communities? Because these are communities that need to secure the continuation of their communities. And in order to do so, they need to make sure that they produce healthy children. And the advancement of biomedical technologies offers us many choices that must be considered in relation to social expectations, communal values and norms, but also cultural and religious guidelines. So what I will be doing is investigating this a little bit further. The acronym for the project is called Religene, and the idea is, whoops, that it is an interdisciplinary project. It examines how state-led genetic healthcare policies intersect with religious and cultural practices. This is why it's called Religene, because it combines religion and healthcare or genetic healthcare together. It specifically focuses on state regulations around partner choice, reproductive practices, but also normative frameworks within, diverse religious traditions, and biomedical technology, so biomedical, opportunities that one can pursue. And it focuses on ethno-religious communities, which, as I refer to, are communities that have a long history of persecution and demographic threat, where family continuity is closely linked to communal survival. They want to survive as a community, and in order to do so, they need to produce healthy children. And how this is done is, first, they need to secure their lineage, and usually this is done through, or achieved through, marrying from within their own families or communities. So they engage in what we refer to as consanguineous and endogamous marriage practices. These marriage forms, they strengthen, obviously, communal unity and belonging, but they also come with a risk, higher risk of inherited genetic diseases and conditions. So we have, on the one hand, we have communities who want to continue as a community, who want to survive as a community, and therefore want to produce or want to marry from within their own, but also want to make sure that they produce healthy children. And on the other side, you have, obviously, the higher risk of increasing, inherited genetic conditions. So there is a dilemma here between the community and what they aim for, and the higher risk of producing potentially unhealthy children, or children with specific conditions. And this is why we see governments interfering. And this is not an Arab problem, it's not an Asian problem, and it's not a European problem. It is actually a global issue. And governments across the globe are trying to regulate marriage practices and also reproductive practices at the same time. So if we look at Europe, for example, in the last 10 years specifically, we have seen a lot of discussions within different European parliaments of parties calling for the prohibition of what they refer to as cousin marriages. And obviously, when they refer to cousin marriages, they target specific communities, specifically Muslim communities, who are known to marry from within their own families, and they want to prohibit certain marriage forms. And obviously, this is problematic on various levels. And we have seen these parliamentarian discussions across European countries. And 2 years ago, Norway was one of the first to actually issue a law prohibiting the marriage of first-degree cousins. And we will see, this is what we predict, that we will see other European countries following. So, for example, in Sweden, They will issue a similar law next month, also prohibiting certain marriage forms, particularly within first-degree cousins. And here in Germany, as this picture also illustrates, there are also further discussions within German parliament in prohibiting such marriages. If you are aware of what's going on in the UK, few months ago, there was a huge debate because the NHS, the National Healthcare Service in the UK, published on their website a report where they called specific communities that they regard as genetically at risk and problem communities, particularly the traveler communities and Pakistani Muslim communities, highlighting their risky marriage practices that also needs to be dealt with. And but this caused a lot of controversy in the public sphere, to the extent that they had to pull out that report from their website. But the damage was already done, because it reached the parliament. The parliamentarians had been discussing this topic. Particularly far-right movements across Europe are using these marriage forms, obviously, to attack and target specific groups, specifically or particularly Muslim communities. So the marriage of within the families or communities or first cousin marriages is specifically presented as a Muslim problem that is a problem and needs to be fixed. And how these governments want to fix it is to prohibit it, and they have started already prohibiting these marriage forms. And as I said, Norway was one of the first to do so. In Germany, obviously, it's a more problematic issue because of Germany's Nazi history, prohibiting certain groups for in marrying and reproducing or not reproducing is obviously a very sensitive topic, and therefore it will be very difficult, in my view, to actually make that law actually come through. But we never know. We really do not know how things develop, particularly nowadays. So we will have to wait and see, and how this will develop. But what we can say at the moment is that we are seeing across Europe a whole wave of interest in marriage forms and reproductive practices, particularly targeting Muslim communities. So this project is very timely, particularly because it does not only focus on one community, but different communities. So, and also different government forms and healthcare systems as well. So what we see is, on the one hand, communities who want to preserve their identity as a community and therefore marrying from within. This raises, this is a fact, it does raise the probability of inherited genetic diseases, but we also have biomedical technologies that could help in dealing with these risks. For example, genetic screening and risk assessment. So we see across the globe, not only in Europe, but also in the Middle East, for example, there are measures taken. So, for example, in a lot of Arab Muslim communities, we see premarital genetic testing done. So you can, from the outset, already clear whether specific genes are risky or not. So there are different ways and measures that can be taken other than just prohibiting. The problem is with the and this is what I argue in the project, and what we will be investigating further, is that when you have a top-down approach of governments, first targeting specific communities, second targeting their marriage practices as problematic that needs to be fixed, it produces a reaction, because communities, they feel targeted, they feel stigmatized, their marriage and cultural practices not taken seriously. So this top-down approach, and this is what we will be going to analyze a bit more. This top-down approach produces counter, a counter reaction. And I argue that it is counterproductive, because communities will feel, even further alienated from these governments that prohibits their marriage practices. Communities will feel more stigmatized, and they will then, even more try to separate themselves from the wider society and their governing and the wider, governments, because they feel that they are not understood and that their needs are not taken seriously either. So what would communities then do if the national context does not help? Communities will go for their transnational networks. So if, for example, and this is what is it's what I argue, particularly within the European context, is very much politicized. It is. I mean, we need to call it out. It's really Islamophobic, because just prohibiting the marriage will not prevent people from conducting these marriages. I mean, they can go abroad and marry and then come back. So communities will seek their partners abroad. If national healthcare services does not cater for their needs, they will go abroad to do healthcare services. For example, doing additional screening tests, or doing abortions, or IVF treatment with pre-implementation genetic diagnosis. So there are various ways, particularly in a globalized world, really, to individuals and communities can adhere to in order to do what they want to do. So this, top-down prohibition will not really do much, except alienate these communities even further from the existing government and their policies and the wider society. But I'm also interested not only in the governance, so state policies, healthcare services, and communal traditions and normative frameworks, but I'm also interested in alternative healing practices, because I have done a pilot study in the UAE before actually coming up with this research project, where I heard experiences of people who, they have their, their communal expectations of marrying, from within specific families on the one hand, but then you have also the genetic, testing and the screening. But then you have also people who would say, well, let's try out alternative healing practices. Maybe that would help. And this is really interesting, the relationship between religion, science, and communal practices. This is something that we will be looking into a bit more while we are. Do you hear me? Yes?
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I think so what case studies do I have? So for this particular project, I have chosen a few European countries and few countries in the Middle East. And particularly, the idea was to have a very diverse group of communities to examine, because I strongly believe that these consanguineous and endogamous marriage practices is not just specific to Muslim communities. We have them among the Haredi communities, the ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities. But I'm also looking at Palestinians of various religious and ethnic backgrounds. So I'm looking at Christian, Muslim Palestinians, Druze, and also Christian and minority groups within Syria and Iraq. I'm looking at Emiratis and their transnational links. So I'm looking at different communities within the Gulf, the Middle East, but also in Europe. And in Europe, I'm looking at Germany and Sweden specifically, but also the UK and the States. Why the UK and States? Because communities like the Haredis, for example, they have very strong transnational links between, for example, New York, London, and Jerusalem. So these are cities that will be looked into a bit more, looking at how these communities negotiate marriage practices and reproductive practices, and how they use transnational links to find solutions for their problems, particularly if nationally they are stuck. So if nationally the legal situation is not helping, or the healthcare service is not providing them with the services that they need, that they would go abroad to do it. Or, for example, if specific IVF treatments are too expensive, like in New York, for example, they would go to Jerusalem to do, specific IVF treatments, particularly if they find that there are certain groups who fund such treatments as well. So yeah, we will be looking at different religious communities, ethno-religious communities, and as you have seen, these are also sort of more or less, close-knit ethno-religious communities, and their transnational links. Yes. So how will we do all this? The idea is that I will be working with a large team. So I will be more or less employing 15 researchers altogether, researchers of various disciplinary backgrounds, but also degrees as well. So we will have research assistants, postdoctoral fellows, PhD students, from diverse disciplinary backgrounds and career stages. The team will closely work with policymakers, healthcare providers, including geneticists, gynecologists, nurses, but also religious leaders and community members. And we will have also a lot of partners in each country as well, universities, for example. So I will be, for example, for several months, I will be in Sharjah, at Sharjah University. I will also go to Doha, at Doha Graduate Institute, and so on and so forth. And I will be expanding my network as well, because the idea is that I apply for further funding. So I applied now for more funding in the Scandinavian country. So I will be employing a postdoc next week, actually, for a larger Scandinavian project on the same topic, but Scandinavia as a whole. And I'm looking for research partners in different countries, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Oman, in Jordan, in Egypt, countries where these practices are very common, where biomedical technology is also very much developed, and where we can team up together and apply for further funding in order to widen the scope. Because my idea is that this project is just a start. What I would like to do, I would like actually to build a global consortium of researchers working on this topic from different perspectives. and build a sort of global infrastructure where we can all collaborate, apply for funding, organize conferences, workshops, team up for publications. And so this is the idea that I use that funding that I have here to apply for even more funding. Yes. In terms of methods, so we will do what is needed in order to understand. First of all, we need to do document and discourse analysis, because we need to understand the context. How is it on the ground? In terms of policies, in terms of regulations, in terms of religious frameworks of these different groups and national context. So we will do a document and discourse analysis, but we will also be in the field. We will conduct ethnographic research of the usual individual as well as focus groups. And this picture is, for example, from my previous work that Hatun introduced among Syrian and Iraqi refugees in Jordan. So we will be hands-on. We will be in the field, talking with people, talking with individuals, talking with families and different family members of different generational categories as well. But we will also talk to healthcare providers. We need also to get the views of healthcare providers, healthcare insurances as well, but also government representatives, in order to understand, the whole context where people are embedded in. Besides the traditional ethnographic research methods that we are all familiar with, I will also use art and new technology in my research, and have done that previously in my previous research as well. And it was very successful, I must say, because it is a different way of engagement with your research participants, where you as a researcher, you don't just go to the field, get your data, go back and write your articles and books and get promoted. What I would like to do is actually to open up spaces for the co-production of knowledge. It's not just us as researchers producing knowledge. It's inviting our participants to co-produce this knowledge. And this can be done in various ways. And I have done it through art. Like you can see here, this is an artistic technique called body mapping. Here's another one. I have these very nice postcards that wherever I go, I would, distribute. It is a nice thing with a QR code, so that you can always scan it and go back to it and listen to it on your own time. But this body mapping is really, really useful. And I'm not an artist myself. I love art, but I'm not an artist, but I collaborate with artists. And again, here, I would like to use this space to open up again the opportunities for anyone who is interested. Like, for example, when I was in UAE to do my pilot study, I went to the Women's Museum in Dubai, and there were very, very talented local artists who would be interested in collaborating with me in such a project. Again, here, I'm opening it up because my interest is not just UAE, it's the whole Gulf, it's the whole Middle East area or region. And what this body mapping does is it's actually really useful, particularly when you talk about, or when your research is concerned about the body. And obviously, when we talk about reproduction, the body is very central. So body mapping is actually a very useful tool to engage with in such research. How it works is very quickly. You have a canvas you lay down in a way that you would like to lay down, and then somebody else comes and draws the contours of your body on canvas. It becomes your tool to express your views, opinions in various ways, through colors, stitching, scanning stuff in it, writing, and so on. And with that method, obviously, we will be producing various canvases that will be then collated together in a form of an artistic exhibition, and it is a moving or a traveling exhibition, as we refer to. So we will be, traveling with these artistic works in a suitcase, and this is, why such a method is actually very sustainable, is because it does not require too much organization. You just fold them, put them in a suitcase, and then you can travel around with them and organize your exhibitions. And that way, you are not only through your research addressing academics, but also the public. So when you organize such exhibitions, you invite, the public into your research, where you can present your research outcomes in various ways. The other method that I am using very quickly is also immersive methods. So I have produced in my previous projects immersive virtual reality. What this is that it is, it is a bit different than the normal or the usual VR that we know of, where you put the goggles on and then you are in an animated space, an avatar in that space. Immersive embodied VR technology enables you to embody, like literally embody in the VR world another person. And this means that you not only hear and see that person, but you can feel and smell the environment that we have filmed in. It's a very powerful tool to use. I can only recommend it. It's fantastic for everyone involved, participants as well as researchers. How are we doing with time, Khatun? I cannot hear you.
We're good, Yafa, we're good.
Okay, so
7 minutes. 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, great. Because what I also wanted to add is that in addition to the artistic work and the immersive technology through the VR, I also use augmented reality. And what augmented reality is that it adds another layer to the artwork. What it means that we can add more information to the artwork by making it more layered. And how this works is, there's an app for free you download on your phone, and then you place your phone in front of the picture, and then the picture starts moving. And by moving, it gives you more insights into the artwork, who produced it, how it was produced, what is the narrative or the message behind it as well. And I think that these different methods, not only that they are cool to use and it's really, out of the box and all this, no, it is also useful in terms of research. As I said, it does put researchers and participants on the same level, because they will be co-producing knowledge and contributing to existing scholarship, but also because of the public engagement activities that it involves through exhibitions and VR workshops and so on. You are inviting the public to also get insights into your research. Not only the public, but also policymakers and politicians, come into your art spaces and can see and hear and engage with your work. So what this means is your research is not only limited to the few who read your stuff, but it can also be opened up for more people interested, out there, who are not academics, but who might be interested in the topic, and engage that way with your work. Yeah, this is my last slide here. This project is urgent, and I'm really glad that the committee who actually assessed my application believed that as well. I promised that through the different layers and the scope and the engagement of diverse researchers with different backgrounds, that I will or the project will offer a new model for understanding and studying the governance of family formations and reproductive practices. What distinguishes Religene is that it is unprecedented. I mean, there is no other project that has its transnational comparative scope. It focuses on communities that navigate state regulations, religious authorities, social-cultural expectations, and biomedical technologies. And here I am focusing on diverse religious communities, of diverse religious traditions. Compare and contrast their normative frameworks in different geographical locations, living under diverse healthcare systems as well. Because when you live in Germany, it's different than when you live in the UK, different than when you live in Saudi or in Jordan or in Egypt. So the regulations are different. So the practices are different as well. Such a topic is usually studied from a medical and life science perspective. So we have a lot of very useful and important research on this topic from that perspective. But what Religene is doing is actually marrying, so to speak, since we're talking about marriage, marrying medical and life sciences with humanities and social sciences together. We're bridging them together. We are looking at the biomedical problematic or issues or challenges that exist, but also how communities and states deal with these challenges, and not only in one national context or one ethnic or religious group. We are looking at diverse religious communities, diverse locations, numerous healthcare systems, and by doing so, Religene, for the first time, examines what has been ignored in scholarship so far, namely how individuals engage with their genetic knowledge, not only as a medical reference or medical information, but also as a marker of religious obligation, moral duty, lineage, and belonging. This research is urgent because, as I said, we are seeing across Europe new laws coming up, laws that restrict marriage between close relatives in the name, obviously, of security and national belonging. But we also see political tensions within different groups within our society. And we have states that want to have, a long-term vision to create a healthy modern state. And obviously, these developments influence how families are formed and how communities imagine their future. And what Religene does in a nutshell is that it illustrates how genetic knowledge, religious beliefs, and political agendas shape people's understanding of personhood. The question, who deserves living or not, is at the center of these policies. Religene asks how genetic knowledge thereby reshapes what it means to belong to a religion, a family, and a nation, and how communities thereby create their own solutions within, within these frameworks, looking at, communities who live under certain political frameworks and healthcare systems, how do they cope with existing limitations and challenges in order to preserve their identity as a community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Yafa. Go ahead, Hatem.
Yeah, this was a very, very interesting topic, and it sounds familiar. At the same time, it sounds very scientific as well and problematic, as you presented. And you wouldn't think that this issue is as global as you presented. You think that it is very, very local, just in the neighborhood or in our region, certain regions of your country.